Oh, turn my phone off. He's going to say 1 minute to go in a minute, or half a second to
Yeah,
go.
5 seconds.
5 seconds. Right, I've got no idea what's Jamie's first song, Django?
It is Welcome to the Revolution.
Welcome to the Revolution.
And you're live.
And good morning, listeners, to Kindasound.org this morning, the global internet radio station on the Reality Bites show with me, your host, Wendy Smith, and my guest, Jamie Denyer, the speaking this morning, or grief preacher. I don't know what way you want to be known, really. So thanks for coming on a return with me, Jamie.
Oh, it's an absolute privilege and a pleasure. It's an honor, to be honest. Yeah, I mean, wild horses couldn't keep me away.
Ah, that's good to know. That's good to know, because we have had a few missed events, haven't we? We've been trying to catch up for ages, but with the Christmas period and everything, and the Gong Show going on, it's been a bit hard to catch up during the week. So it's
absolutely. But listen, there are certain things that are worth waiting for. So there's
indeed, there are. So a little bit of brief history about Jamie. He's been on the show before. And Jamie goes around schools and into colleges and places like that, talking around how the damage that one punch can actually do, and that it can actually kill you, because you had an experience, didn't you? But I think it was your nephew, wasn't it?
It was, yeah. Back in 2012. I mean, he was hit from behind in an unprovoked attack. He went over and he hit his head and died of blunt force trauma, which is severe brain damage. But you know, this is something that you don't necessarily know about, you don't necessarily can happen, and you only learn about it when it comes to your door. But the deeper that you dig, you realize that this is like quite a regular occurrence now, and people are dying from going over and hitting their head, dying of blunt force trauma. But people are literally dying from the punch itself, and are literally dying before they hit the floor. So there's a real mix, and you know, it just all comes down to, you know, just don't throw the punch. But you know, a lot of people think that they're justified in doing so.
And it was at that point, wasn't it, that you went into speaking, that it sort of hit a nerve with you and you thought you wanted to start sharing this?
Yeah, absolutely. And I went out there with my message of like the consequences of your actions, you know, bringing to the forefront what happened to my nephew, but ultimately in the aftermath, like what happened to my whole entire family. Do you know what I mean? There's things that happen that you don't even know about, because when a child is taken away, you know, my sister and brother-in-law were together ever since they were 12 and 13, married at 19 and 20. You know what I mean? They got two other children, they've got beautiful grandchildren, but they were within a cat's whisker of breaking up, because they weren't there to support each other. They were going through their own hell, their own trauma, their own trench, that they were very, very close to actually breaking up themselves. You know, my brother-in-law lost his massive business and 30 employees and stuff, because he couldn't function as a human being. Do you know what I mean? It's like, and that is just like the tip of the iceberg. So yeah, after that, I really wanted to speak out about this and kind of bring hope and kind of education and inspiration to this bad situation. But then it started to branch out that I had a lot more to give. It wasn't just about that message. I mean, I brought my message of kind of growing up in a council estate where I saw drug dealing and murders and stuff, that I didn't let my environment shape me and mold me. You know, I kind of went against what I was seeing. So you know, bringing that message to people. Listen, your environment don't shape you. Do you know what I mean? It's not the absolute be all and the end all of where you are. Doesn't necessarily determine where you can end up and where you can get to. So yeah, there was loads of stuff that I brought to the table, of like me being bullied when I was young. So I mean, going into the schools and kind of then talking about all this stuff, it resonated with so many. And then of course, during the first big lockdown in 2020, the youngest of my two older sisters took her own life. So I go in and I sort of talk about suicide, because trust me, now I'm speaking to kids that are thinking about it.
Yeah, and that is the thing, isn't it? I mean, I've always experienced this myself. I've been working in education for probably must be 10 or 12 years now. I sort of lose track of time. But the one thing, I remember doing some stats on some year sevens at one point, and what I found was about 85% of all year sevens were either seriously anxious, having suicidal thoughts, or had attempted it in some way, shape or form, or were self-harming. And that's a really large stat, actually. 85% of year sevens, they're like 11-year-olds.
Yeah, and it's like, it's one of those things that when they make the step up from year 6 to year 7, it's a massive step. It's a massive milestone in their life. It's a massive test, and it's a massive challenge. You know, and it's one of those, you know, that transition, you know, test them, because they've got all these preconceived thoughts. And it's like, whenever I speak to like the year 7s, like because just recently I was being brought in to talk about these transitional talks and to help them in their transition. And I was speaking to loads of year 7s, and they were all saying stuff like, you know, when I asked them the question, listen, what were you worried about? Like, what's on your mind? And they were like, oh, you know, that I would get lost, and that this place is bigger now and it's more intimidating. I'm worried about getting bullied. I'm worried about the homework. I'm worried if I'm going to fit in. I'm worried. So all this stuff is on their mind. So I can see why it's such a big step, and it's a big transition, and it's a big test. But trust me, over the last 2 years, that has intensified. That transition has never ever been harder. So even if it was like that back then, those stats are now higher.
Yeah, which is, and we have the social media pressure on top of that as well now, don't we? So they're not just bullied at school in person. It can now, this is the thing, it's the hidden factor of bullying as well, isn't it?
Yeah, it's 24/7. It's 24/7, and there's stuff that, you know, can be said to you, which is horrible. But you know, when it's written and it really, really stays there, you know, that's why, you know, again, you know, I talk about the dangers of social media, because at the end of the day, I mean, myself and my family, in the aftermath of my nephew being killed, we were mocked and we were abused on social media by the people that were involved in this. Do you know what I mean? So it's like we deal with the sick aspect. You know, we were dealing with the sick aspect of like social media. So I go in and I talk to these kids, and like I say to them, like, even when I go out and I do my talks, like when I did my TEDx talk about this particular subject, like I'm someone that's up on stage talking about a family member that was killed. I'm wearing my heart on my sleeve. I'm talking with passion. I'm talking with you know, love for my nephew, but I'm also talking from a place of pain. Like I got some beautiful comments on there, and that's amazing. But you know what I mean? I was getting comments on there, and one in particular that was talking about my nephew and saying that if someone can kill you with a single punch, then you deserve to die. Do you know what I mean? So I was dealing with that kind of you know, interaction and that kind of vitriol and venom from the social media. So I go in and I speak to the kids saying, look, if I get it for doing something really positive and productive and well-meaning, like, you are going to get it as well. Like, it's not a case of if, but it's a case of when. Yeah. So you have to be prepared for this. You have to be prepared for when it comes. And it's really sad telling that to the kids, saying that you've got a 99.99999% chance that you are going to get hatred on social media. So just be prepared for it. So yeah, I was realizing that everything that I was going through and everything that was like happening to me was all of a sudden amazing ammunition to kind of fire at the kids for their benefit. Do you know what I mean? I was going through it so I could take it to them in order to help them get through their tests and trials, you know. So
I think that's a beautiful thing, Jamie, because we're not taught this stuff in school. You know, they're life lessons that when you it's always having that little thought. I think you can unconsciously prime people for things so it doesn't hit them as hard. And it's like you say, you know, with the trolling, we call it as well. You know, both of us are on social media a lot. And I find that every now and then I just get one will come in and you get like a random attack off of someone who you've obviously hit a trigger, or they've got something negative themselves and they just want to throw a bit of spite out. But as an adult, you know, it still hits me and I still get a reaction and I still go like, wow, wow, I can't believe that. But I'll reply now in a different way because I don't believe in giving that back. But as a child, you know, you either go inside, don't you, and retract away from everything and take it as a massive insult on you and that you're not good enough, or you go out the other way and get really aggressive and abusive. And
absolutely, and it's one of those things that, yeah, I mean, like human beings, like as human beings, like we do, like any form of animosity or adversity, like when it comes to you know, you're taken back a bit for a little while. And it's like, but I'm of that kind of mindset now where I think, oh, bless them. Do you know what I mean? Like I'm glad I'm the kind of person that receives it as opposed to being the kind of person that gives it out. And I take it on a case by case basis. Like I will reply just with kindness. I will reply with just being cool, calm, and collected. But there are some, and this applies to everything in life, that there comes a time where there's only one language that someone will indeed understand, and it gets through to them. Right? You have to really say, listen, that isn't right. That isn't right. Do you understand what you're doing isn't right? And that applies to so many different situations in life, that, you know, the kindness will make a massive change. But there are times when you need to turn around and you have to say, no, that isn't right. And you need to tell them in no uncertain terms, you know, still keep your class, you know what I mean, and still keep your dignity and your integrity, but tell them that what they're doing is not right. So yeah, I take it on a case by case basis, comment by comment basis, if you know what
Which I mean. It pretty much is. I mean, I work on the same basis as you. I always think that whatever someone is giving out of their mouth, they're just showing me their internal state. They're showing me where they are in life and who they are. And that's all they're doing. And like you say, you know, there's sometimes it's like, whoa, that's enough now.
Yeah.
And other times it's like, well, thank you for sharing your opinion. That was very interesting.
You know, but you know, the kids, like you say, just aren't taught this, and they're not emotionally mature enough to kind of handle that situation in that way. So whenever someone comes with a, you know, we're talking like a direct personal attack, like, you are a mistake. Why don't you check out? Like, why don't you kill yourself? Listen, if you bring a chair, I'll bring the rope and I'll help you do this, because like you're a disgrace and stuff. So when they're dealing with that, it's really hard for them, do you know what I mean, to kind of be emotionally mature enough, emotionally intelligent enough, and emotionally resilient enough for them to say, oh, bless you, do you know what I mean, you're just projecting onto me, do you know what I mean? There's a lot going on at the moment. There's a lot happening, and yeah, there are pressures that the teenagers of today have to deal with, that the teenagers, you know, our teenage years back then, you know, we didn't have to deal with. But yeah, you know, again, you know, throw on top the 2 years that they've had, it's an absolute mixing pot for chaos and carnage for them, you know, emotionally, mentally, psychologically, and indeed physically for these kids.
Yeah, and it's like you say, there's a lot of people who actually don't realise that is going on. I work with, same as you, I work on that spectrum of things when I'm in schools, is with interventions and bits and pieces like that. The main thing actually that the schools have got us working on at the moment is gang culture. Because a lot of the kids, I don't know, this is what I was going to ask you actually, have you noticed from your end, because I know you're up near Wales, aren't you?
Yeah.
Yeah, have you noticed from your side, because we've got an increase down here of kids now wanting to join gang culture, especially over the last 2 years. Have you noticed anything?
That doesn't surprise me, because, you know, like, we're dealing with a lot of anger, a lot of angst, and let's just say, you know, the stuff, even though I go, you know, listen, that's down there is my ends, do you know what I mean? Originally, it's like up in Wales, like it'll take time for stuff to filter through, do you know what I mean? Like, the gang culture just in general is nowhere near what it's like in London and stuff like that. So yeah, but this doesn't surprise me, because, you know, I know that kids are filled with a lot more anger, a lot more angst, you know what I mean? They're scared, they're fearful, and our actions, you know what I mean, like fight or flight, when we're fearful, when we're scared, do you know what I mean, that they can be irrational and illogical, and they're most probably, yeah, listen, joining something because that feels like a family, even, do you know what I mean, like a togetherness, a brotherhood, and that doesn't surprise me, because a lot of anger going about, a lot of angst, and they are behaving in that sort of way. So yeah, you know, you have to look at maybe like what the extra anger and what the extra angst is right now. If you can imagine being in the situation that they are in the last kind of couple of years, it's not only them that's dealing with it, right? It's other people. So what I've seen in schools is a real regression in IQ, communication skills, a real regression in like behavior, but also the rise in trauma. Do you know what I mean? Right, the trauma that these youngsters are going through, because during the school year, if there's like a 1 week half term, the kids stay quiet. If it's coming up to a 2 week half term, the kids stay quiet. But trust me, on the build up to the 6 week summer holiday, you will get kids divulging what's happening to them at home, because their little brains can't cope. That I can't last the 6 weeks. The 6 week summer holiday is just too much for them to take. So can you imagine, right? If that situation is there for 6 weeks, imagine what these kids have gone through over a period of time for like the 2 years when they've been locked away for months. They've been locked away for months with their abusers, locked away for months with their tormentors. And not only that, right? So this situation itself really, really impacts the mental state of the child, but also impacts the mental state of the abuser as well. So the monsters are becoming even more monstrous. So the trauma, the abuse, the torture, the hurt, and the pain is not only at a more regular basis because you're locked in for months instead of 6 weeks at max, but the abuse, the torment, and the torture is becoming more severe because the monster is being impacted by all this as well. So the monsters are becoming more monstrous. So the trauma is even more. So this is what people aren't understanding. And then, do you know what I mean? Like you go back to the schools where the teachers are doing an unbelievable job, where I've said even before this, that teachers weren't just teachers. Teachers were like counselors, they were social workers, they were like family to these kids. More and more teachers were being called mum and dad, like in the build up to this than you care to imagine. So all of a sudden, like school was their place of safety, was their place of like sanctuary and solace. Now, you know, the teachers are getting these damaged kids back, which is putting more pressure onto the teacher, and then the teachers are being impacted by this. The teachers are suffering. So it's a real vicious cycle. But yeah, that's the thing that people need to realize is the monsters were becoming more monstrous. The abuse was more severe and on a more regular basis. And this is what people don't seem to be getting, even though you don't need to be in the education system to see this. But people just, for some reason, don't get it.
Well, I'm not sure if it's being blind to it, Jamie. I think it's because you never really hear about it anywhere unless you work in our sort of environments. I mean, we know the amount of trafficking and abuse, and you know, we can get into all of those subjects, but we know what goes on this plane of existence with our kids. And like you say, in situations like that with just home life, it can be stressed out parents that just are constantly on the case. It hasn't got to be serious abuse, but something that's a drip feed. Constant,
yeah.
constant,
you know, that slowly drifts. Yeah, and that's where things are dangerous. Do you know what I mean? But yeah, and it's like if something happens subtly, then it becomes harder to see. But I've seen a dramatic change in children's behaviour. There's a dramatic change. It's like from one to the other. It's like this is it's the same child, but it's a different child. And it's like you don't need, like I say, to be really involved, although it helps, unbelievably helps, that you don't need to be properly involved, like really like submerged into the education system to see this happening. Because in the last 2 years, if there's ever been an example that evidence is there, that stuff is there, facts are there, you can see it with your own eyes, and people still choose to look the other way, then this 2 years has been it. This 2 years has been it, that people have seen what's happening, evidence, data, information, advice from world-class professionals, world-renowned in their field, and people still go against it. This 2 years has summed that up without a shadow of a doubt, that this is, people don't want to acknowledge it. They want to bury their heads in the sand because some of them are just stubborn and ignorant beyond belief. Some of them see it and they still do nothing about it. They're kind of like the most dangerous ones, if you know what I mean. But there are other people, that see it and they justify it. Why? Because they don't want to turn around and put their hands up and say, sorry, I was wrong. Because that can literally be the hardest word for someone to say, sorry, I was wrong, because it makes you feel embarrassed. So people would rather live a lie, an uncomfortable lie, than turn around and indeed own up. Sorry, a comfortable lie, rather than turn around and own up to an uncomfortable truth. That's what I'm seeing. So yeah, there's a lot of damage that people aren't seeing because it's subtle, but there are also ones that see it and they just don't want to acknowledge it.
Yeah, we're seeing this, I mean, all across the board. We'll get into this in a minute. We're seeing this with the healthcare workers, all sorts of stuff at the moment. There is severe misconduct going on throughout our nation at the moment, or globally as well. And people are literally just sticking their heads back in the sand and turning a blind eye. And I think enough is enough now. So welcome to the revolution. First song, why do you like this one?
Well, sometimes a song just kind of says everything that you want to say, and this is it, talking about what's gone on the past 2 years and stuff. I'll let my main man Jim kind of explain it, and yeah, just listen to the words, because it does what it says on the tin.
I like that. Django, if you wouldn't mind then, please, a bit of revolution this morning, thank you.
Cool, you're off air.
The lovely job, Sid. Oh, I've heard this one. Yeah, revolution is something that that's my word of the year, Jamie, to be honest. I'm done now.
That's the key word.
The key word, done now. It's too much now. But the gang thing was interesting. I wouldn't mind having a chat with you about some of this at some point, because we've been asked to go into a local school to do some gang intervention stuff. And I do the first session next week. I've got one of my friends who's a former police trainer.
Yeah.
And he's got lots of experience in that field. But if the programme maps out well, it might be something to chuck at you up there.
Amazing.
To put into some of the schools as well, because I know, like you say, you've not got as much of an issue up your end as what we have down here. But it's like you were saying, you know, the kids, because they're feeling so overwhelmed in that space and that space over there, they're going in this space over here, which is really not going to be helping them out in the long run. But that's where they're finding the family and the support and the escape through these bloody lockdowns. Absolutely. And it's just like, because it's creating a lot of anger and a lot of angst. It's like that's how they're channeling it. Do you know what I mean? And they will go into the gangs to do naughty things and to get that anger out. Do you know what I mean? But yeah, to feel like a part of a family and stuff, because you don't know what's going on behind closed doors, where the people who are family are doing very, very unfamily things to them, that they want to feel part of a family, and these gangs are welcoming them with open arms. Do you know what I mean? And making them feel special. You know. Yeah, I'm just feeling from a lot of the minute. I've not been in this particular high school since, I think my last visit was November last year. So it'll be interesting to see what the kids are like. We're doing year 7 through to year 9 on Wednesday. So it'll be interesting to see how they all are. I've got them in quite small groups as well, groups of 20. Oh, nice. The intimate groups. Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, so it'll be interesting to see where their heads are at. Because, yeah. It's sort of it's getting a bit much for them now, I think, really. Absolutely overwhelming, and it's just like, it's one of the points that people just ignore, that when you talk about, you know, when people say, oh yeah, but lockdowns work, and it's like, well, how do you justify lockdowns then? Do you know what I mean? Like, one element is the skyrocketing decline in mental health. Do you know what I mean? Like in your opinion, is that it working? And a lot of people just don't seem to have an answer. They don't seem to have they are like scripted, and they are like conditioned. You can tell
30 seconds.
Person, you know, from a mile off, and a lot of them are indeed that, you know, conditioned. They don't have an answer for it. Yeah, we'll wander into that if that's all good with you. I know you don't. Yeah, absolutely. Let's go. Django, what's the second song Jamie's got?
I'll maybe send them to you in the chat.
Oh, great. Thanks. I've got to click buttons then.
Kindasound Radio, the station for a global community.
And you're live.
And welcome back to Kindasound this morning. So thank you, listeners, for tuning in. I'm here on Reality Bites with my guest, Jamie Denyer, the speaking grief preacher. So lovely to have you back, Jamie, and especially share your knowledge of what you do as well within the schools and your experience of the last 2 years. So it's interesting because we literally met, it must have been 2 years ago at the start of this. It's funny, isn't it, how you suddenly start randomly bumping into people through social media who seem to be on the same page as you. And I've watched your sort of journey over the last 2 years unfold a little bit as well, which has been interesting, because many people started not communicating what was going on, but you've actually started ramping it up now, and you've got a lot of common sense behind stuff. And in the break, we were talking about lockdowns. What has been your opinion of the lockdowns and your experience of them from when they started? How did your journey of this start, actually? What did you think when all this gong show kicked off in March 2020? I don't even know when it started now.
Yeah, I know. I mean, like the years are just kind of blurring into one now, which is a very scary thing. Do you know what I mean? It's a dangerous thing that's happening. But yeah, I just brought my natural kind of environment of speaking into this arena where I saw people struggling, where I was very, very motivational and inspirational at a point where I'd be trying to help people get through this test, get through this trial. But then it became kind of more to do with what I was seeing, and this is the key word here, because I don't claim to be an expert in any shape, way, or form, but what I have got is common sense. Throw into that a little bit of a lot of ADHD, where I look at fine details and I'm thinking, well, what, that bit of evidence there don't add up, that there don't add up, that there don't add up. And within an equation, if you're one number out, if there's one number wrong, the end equation is going to be wrong. If you want to take it biblically, then you say one lump of leaven leavens the entire lump, meaning the unpurified dough, just one little lump of unpurified dough will literally unpurify the whole loaf. And it's like, so one little drop of cyanide in 5 liters of water poisons the whole 5 liters. So when I'm looking at these lies, when I'm looking at stuff that don't add up, it don't add up. So I speak out about it. And this whole thing started to not add up. This is what I'm saying. And just bringing the common sense aspect, that I was saying, listen, there's a lie being told there. There's evidence that don't support what you're saying there. There's that just doesn't add up. That there is coercion. That there is manipulation. So what people need to realize is, if this situation or the logic and the methods behind it was applied to any other situation or circumstance, you would be standing back thinking, what is going on? If this was a loving relationship, you would be in a narcissistic, you would be in a controlled, manipulated relationship. Like with all what's going on, like a domestic violent relationship, this is what you would be in. But yet, because it's something that you're being told is right, and this is what it is, then people are believing and they're going along with it without even questioning. And when people say question the science, I'm like, do you understand that that's how science works? That you question it, that you debate it, that's what you do. That's what science is. So don't just throw that as some kind of like little buzz phrase, follow the science, along with build back better and all this kind. Don't just keep throwing like buzzwords out there and expecting it to stick. But it's surprising. Well, it neither shocks me nor surprises me, but it concerns me and it alarms me that it is sticking with so many people. And like I say, if you apply this, what's happened to any other given situation, people would stand back and they would be alarmed by all this. So yeah, I started doing the talks, and it's something that, of course, everything shut down. So what I did by going into schools all of a sudden shut down. I'd done a lot of stuff online, but then with one school in particular, like they were really forward thinking, and they were being very, very reactive to something that happened, and even proactive. What they did was they were getting me in a really big room in one of their leisure centers, like with the kids really spaced out, small groups of these kids that came in on a time slot during the day, that I was talking about, suicide prevention, because a lot of these kids right through the board from year 7 up to year 11 had attempted to take their own life, or were attempting, or the self-harming was so severe that they got me in to do these talks. People have to realize that this stuff is happening. This stuff is happening. That you can't just say, oh, well, the lockdowns are like the answer to the spreading this virus, this 99.9 survival recovery rate virus, that is what needs to happen, and that's it. You have to look at the downside. So listen, my sister took her own life during lockdown. So don't go throwing the guilt trip on me by saying to me, oh yeah, but if you had lost someone through the virus, then you'd be thinking differently. Listen, if you had lost someone through suicide, you would be thinking differently. So don't bring the guilt trip on me, because you're coming from a place of emotion, and that is where that's where things get kind of distorted. Do you know what I mean? So for me, having to go into these to do these sessions where they're spiraling decline in mental health, where people are really suffering and they're going through trauma, that I even had to do these, that there is a downside. But people, like I say, they don't seem to be acknowledging that. A lot of people will acknowledge not acknowledge it because they literally can't see it and it's too subtle. They're not involved enough to see this happening. Some people will see it through common sense and literally still choose to ignore it because they don't want to turn around, hold their hands up and say, yeah, this is happening, because then their whole thought process needs to change. Their whole attitude needs to change. People don't want to admit that. And also, you know, you get the people that just blatantly don't want to see it because they just want to live a very, very comfortable lie as opposed to turning around and admitting to a very, very uncomfortable truth. And that's when a lot of people will have to hold their hands up and say to other people that I'm sorry, I was wrong. But isn't it amazing? Do you know what I mean? Even like such gurus as Ronan Keating said, do you know what I mean? Sorry seems to be the hardest word to say with a lot of people. Yeah. People don't want to be saying that word because it proves they were wrong. Well, but there's a massive, I told you so coming.
Yeah, and like you said, a cognitive dissonance. I mean, I've had an experience with this recently where last year I was called well, I wasn't actually. The conversation was, it's the intelligent thing to do to get the injection, right? And I went, wow, so are you calling me unintelligent? And this person went, oh, no, that's not what I said. It's like, no, that's what you just said. Because I trust my immune system. There's a 99.9% survival rate. I think I'll take my chances rather than go for something experimental. You're right. Then the second comment was, again, something about toxins in the body, where using the word which I hate. I hate the word anti-vaxxer. I think it's one of the most discriminative.
It's not even a thing, Wen. It's not even a thing. First of all, right, if you're anti something, the thing has to be something that it's claiming to be, right? So this vaccine, right, that had to have its definition changed in order to be rolled out isn't a vaccine. It's a treatment at best. That's all it is. Listen, a vaccine does the job. A vaccine does the job on smallpox, on polio, on measles and stuff like that. Listen, a vaccine will do it. So we're not anti-vaccination because a lot of people who are opposed to this back in the day had their BCG, they would have had their polio and their tetanus and all this game because it's proven and it was brought out in the right way. But there's never, ever been a vaccine that has troubled family and friend relationships, that has made a massive attack on our fundamental rights, has put your job and your livelihood at risk, divided people like you wouldn't believe. No vaccine has ever done that. So first and foremost, anti-vaxxer, that there, along with conspiracy theorists, which should be now labelled as psychic and fortune teller, and you know that's what they should be. But you have to look at the origin of that label as well. Yeah. This is what we're dealing with, right? So when people throw at you that you're or claim unintelligent, because it's amazing how unbelievably intelligent and world-renowned professionals in their field, even the inventors of something, are opposed to this and not taking this. So let's throw the intelligent thing as if that's like a cause for like explanation, or it's something that kind of backs up what you're saying. Let's throw that out of the window because there's so many other, very, very intelligent people that are doing the same. Let's throw away all these other labels, because you are dealing with, and I'm sorry to use this, but I'm not afraid to use this. You are dealing with very unintelligent people who are going along with this, that just throw these buzzwords out as if there's some kind of explanation when they're really not. You have to do your research the origins of the label conspiracy theory. How can you be an anti-vaxxer when it isn't even a vaccine? Because it doesn't stop you from getting it. It doesn't do what it says on the tins. So you can't be an anti-vaxxer. Plus, we've had vaccines in the past. What we are is anti-BS. What we are is anti-coercion. We're anti-manipulation. We are anti-lies. That's what we are. Anti that. Do you know what I mean? So when I see all that, yeah, I'm not surprised or shocked that you get them kind of comments. But also, do you know what I mean? You again, listen, you'll get that kind of stuff in life. It's amazing what you are dealing with in this, but that you also deal with in normal life before all this, but it's just been ramped up.
It's the segregation. I tell you, the one thing that's hit me the most, Jay, about this is the segregation side of it. That people, when I said to this particular person, where'd you get your information? Because I just reeled off some numbers and some names and some figures around stuff. Because obviously, me and you do a bit of research, just random, like
just a little bit, yeah,
a little bit, and they just said, well, off the news. Why is this stuff you're talking about not mainstream? And it's like, have you ever researched who funds these people and how they're connected with shares to pharmacy? And it was like this, you could see this person was literally, their brain was having a meltdown because they're just TV watchers. They've never.
And sometimes you really do have to put it in layman's terms. Like I say to people now, when I say, like, why are you putting your trust in people health-wise that benefit from your sickness? Why are you putting your trust in the people and the organizations with your health, when these people benefit from your sickness? They profit from your sickness. Tell me this. And then right, okay. And then, you know, when you do throw facts out and you say, listen, the people that are bringing this out, that you know what I mean, they were convicted of the biggest lie in pharmaceutical history, that to pay the biggest fine and all that. You do realize that
billion,
because they got doctors and scientists to lie for this product. You do realize that. And it's like, you know, again, if you apply this to any other situation, if you're with someone, if you're with a guy or indeed a woman, because it happens on both, that you are beaten to within an inch of your life in a domestic violent attack, do you think that's going to be a one-off, or do you think that's going to happen again? Because if they've done it before, guess what? They're going to do it again. Why? Because of the profits. Why? Because you then look at who the billionaires are, the 500 new billionaires in the world. You realize why the big hitters who were billionaires are now combined into the trillions. You see the profits. You see how $1 trillion has shifted from, like, you know what I mean, like the poorer side of the economy into the richer side of the economy. And listen, these are the things that you need to look at to kind of make your equation, because every little element plays its part. And even if something, like, see, this is the psychological thing behind it, that even if it's like people want to see one massive change or one massive bit of evidence, right? But you don't get that in life. What you have to do is you have to acquire loads of little bits of evidence to bring forward a case in a case of law. Do you know what I mean? It's not one big bit of evidence. But people's human nature, even if you bring that one massive piece of evidence, they would still go, no, I want to see more. I want to see more, because it's that comfortable lie. And it's that moment that they will need to turn around and literally say, I'm sorry, because some of these people, when if they walked into a room and Boris Johnson and Bill Gates and all these people and Zuckerberg or the stuff, whatever, were there with the president of China, with having a party with Matt Hancock in the corner, in a very, very you know, surreal position, let's say, that all this was going on, and you had doctors in the corner dancing to a TikTok video, that if you had all this happening in front of them, whilst they're cheering with no masks on, whilst they're cheering how rich they are, people would still walk into that situation and think, what's for tea tonight? Oh, I must watch EastEnders tonight, and walk back out again, because no matter what you show them, they won't get it. And that's why I said, listen, what will it take for you to understand? What will it take for you to kind of, listen, admit this or see this or get it? And it's alarming that people just aren't getting it.
I've found it, you know what, we're going to go for another music breaks now, but I know this has been one of the most fascinating social experiments I've ever watched. It really,
and listen, I talk about social experiments after this as well, because people won't know about some of these, but you know, it's one of them that it ties in beautifully. It shows human behavior, it shows what we're about, and kind of what's happening. It's playing out in front of us. So yeah, social experiments. Yeah, this is the biggest one. Like,
yeah, fascinating, Jay. Fascinating. Right, make some noise. Well, it's obviously everything ties into what's happening. Just make some noise. No explanation.
Yeah. Sometimes that's what we got to do. You can't stay quiet. You have got to make some noise about something that you're passionate about. You know, the Beastie Boys was one of the first bands that I ever saw when I was 9 years old. So that's why, you know, my love of hip hop's there. But yeah, you know, they say that you literally have to bring the noise. And again, you know, like you know, the starting lyrics of "Here we go again, nothing more, nothing lesser, back on the mic, it's the antidepressor." You know, that's how I see my kind of role is. I need to make some noise to try and help these people through like this trench of mental health and depression, what's going on. But yeah, you know, everyone can do it. Make some noise. Yeah,
and it's just making that choice for you as an individual to do that. And if we all stood up and did that, we'd be out of this shit show before we know what's happened. So Django, if you wouldn't mind, make some noise, please.
Lovely, you're a fair.
Oh, thank you. Right, so the next one is Power and then Sparta.
Yeah.
Cool, got them. Yeah, we'll go into social experiments because I think people don't, you know, they've got no concept of what. I'm seeing the weirdest shit happen at the moment, honestly. I'm literally baffled by humanity. One thing, I was talking to a mate last night, actually, who came over, and I was just saying, like, hat off to these people for what they've done for the last couple of 1,000 years. Do you know what I mean? With bringing in like to change the whole of the history books, and you know, people just, our history is not the history that was there when you look into this stuff. And I just go like, wow, these people have done a good job on humanity. And it's like sitting back watching a movie at the moment.
Yeah, and it's like, it's one of them as well that, listen, in the not too distant past, you have to realize what happened even with medication. Do you know what I mean? Rockefeller come up and changed the game with that, because up until 120 odd years ago,
1910, that they started bringing all that, the new pharmaceutical model in, wasn't it? Roundabout.
Yeah. So in the not too distant, so around about 110, 120 years ago, like we're talking, you know, that everything was dealt with kind of naturally and herbally and stuff like that. And then all of a sudden this comes in, but say to people, do you know what Rockefeller did in 1910? No. Do you know what happened with like the pharmaceutical game? No. And it's right. Okay.
Well,
that's why you don't know. That's why you can't see this.
Two biggest things, wasn't it? Most people just use Google anyway, Jamie, or look at the BBC. But it was the pharmaceutical and the financial system, wasn't it? Bringing in the fiat currency bullshit, going away from gold back to gold standard and all that stuff, and bringing in germ theory, not terrain theory. So just totally dispelling the whole of how everything had been done with, you know, you think about all these natural medicines that were there. I remember as a kid, if we stung ourselves, you know, mum would go and get some dock leaves.
Yeah.
You wouldn't go and get aspirin and rub cream all over it. She'd just be like, hang on a minute. She'd go outside, you know, pull up a few dock leaves, come in, rub them up and down your legs in the
you know, and I know some of them, you know, like you think, how on earth does that work, or what are you on? Do you know what I mean? Like my nan used to say, oh yeah, when we had a cold, we used to go and breathe in tar. We used to like the tar for the tarmac, the road. She said like that used to clear our lungs. Like we used to do that. And yeah, there's some wild ones out there, but listen, you can't go against like the evidence of this stuff working. You can't go against the evidence of what has been. Do you know what I mean? You have to look at that as evidence, but so many people aren't, and that's
30 seconds.
You know, and that's the thing with me is I'm learning as I'm going along as well, but I'm taking everything that I'm learning on board and holding my hands up and saying, whoa, this is a thing. But so many people ain't.
Yeah, I mean, well, that's the thing about the learning stuff. I've been through some proper learning curves over the last 2 years with everything from the legal system. Like that's the biggest eye-opener ever. How screwed over we've been there to, you know, to everything else that's going on with just the lies. The lies. It's like... You know, just because of my job. My job is to search live.
And you're live.
And welcome back again to Kindasound this morning with my guest Jamie Denyer on the Reality Bite Show. And we've been talking a bit of everything really. So at the moment we're going to go to social experiments, because this is something that you talk quite a lot about, isn't it, Jamie? And obviously we're undergoing the biggest social experiment in probably history at the moment. So
yeah, and it's something that, you know, people have been involved in these like for a long time, and they've been addicted to them for like you know, for a long time. Because when you realise that the first ever Big Brother, that's all it was going to be, was a social experiment, and it kind of turned into, you know, this this thing where people then all of a sudden sought fame from it and would do outlandish things just to get known and just get their 15 minutes of fame when they come out and stuff. So, you know, it turned into something else. But when you look back to when that Scouse guy Craig won it, do you know what I mean? That's what it was a social experiment. And you see things playing out and happening in our situation right now. You see it happening, and you have to learn by what human beings do, because it's in our human nature. Now, a social experiment that I really researched and really sort of caught my eye was something called the Stanford prison experiment, where it was supposed to be, you know, around about a month long prison experiment that they what they did was they mocked up this prison, right? They used a small section of an abandoned prison, and what they did was they got university students in, so people that knew each other, people that were good friends, and they brought like a group in. One of them was given the position of prison guard, 3 were given the position of the top guards, then you had quite a few just normal on the ground guards, and then you had the inmates. So it was like, yeah, listen, look, we'll do it close to prison kind of conditions as we can. Like, you'll have 3 meals a day. Do you know what I mean? Like, you will be getting paid for this. Do you know what I mean? I think at the time it was like late 70s, early 80s, something like $15 a day for the entire month. But yeah, you have 3 meals a day. Listen, there are routines you have to follow. The guards have to tell you and all this, you know, what's going on and blah, blah, blah. And of course, you know, the orders were being said. Then the orders started to be shouted. And then, listen, for a social experiment that was supposed to last a month, it was abandoned after 6 days, because what they were doing was the guards were then getting their truncheons out. They were smashing the people, like the inmates, people that they knew. They were smashing them with the batons. They were smashing them with the truncheons. They were getting really, really heavy-handed. So if you don't think that you're capable of this, or other people are capable of this, then you are deluded and you're fooling yourself. Because first of all, that shows human nature, what we are capable of, that we will turn on the people that we consider friends and we consider family. And it's amazing how many friends or family are sort of segregating other and kind of outing and sort of throwing other family members out into the wilderness, and friends that are willing to kind of just break all ties because of this. But also, do you know what I mean? Like the behavior, turning on people that they love, like verbal anger, verbal aggression, telling them, right, this is what's happening. But also, human nature is designed to kind of have a goal, like get what you want. And when you get there, it becomes boring, so you have to push the boundaries. So all of a sudden, like these prison guards, they got bored with saying the orders, so they had to start shouting. Then they got bored with shouting it. Then they had to beat them. Right, so that shows the progression in behavior. So what you have to understand is all these demands, these insane demands that are being put on us, the more that we comply with it, the more insane their demands will become, because they will become bored with what's happening and they will push the boundaries, as the Stanford prison experiment shows. This social experiment shows human behavior. And this is what's going on, that when you are given a position of authority and power, there's only a certain amount of people that can use that authority and that power wisely. Most of the time it goes to people's heads, and their boundaries will get pushed of what they can do and what they can achieve and what they can get out of people. This is what's happening right here. So the more people comply and the more the people stand for this, the more insane their demands will become. Because you have to look at the clever use of language, the clever use, that one word changed or one word tweaked in a sentence and the whole sentence changes.
Cases. Right? The word cases, not deaths, Jamie.
Yeah. Let's have a look at died because of COVID or died with COVID. People that are obese and overweight and underlying health issues that would have been taken out of the game anyway, and this virus come along. So that isn't died because of, that's bad, because if people were dying because of it, these superhero politicians wouldn't be mingling at the first given opportunity, mingling together, partying, or employing with taxpayers' money millionaire secretaries to come in to work for them so they can have an affair behind their wife's back while other people are locked down. Like, people don't seem to be getting this. Like, people don't seem to be getting this.
If there was this thing
that's playing out in front of them. So it
point
also shows what people are willing to stand for. That these inmates were getting beaten by their friends, and they weren't willing to turn around and say, no, you don't do that. No, that enough is enough. The people that were conducting the experiment had to abandon after 6 days. The inmates didn't turn around and say that is enough. They let these people do it to them. So it shows what we are prepared to do or go along with people in authority. Prove me wrong, because, like I say again, like I'm not some expert, but I have got a lot of common sense. I'm learning as I'm going along. I'm seeing things. I'm researching. I'm doing all this stuff. And it's like a lot of people will throw that on me. Oh, what? You got that from YouTube, did you? Oh, what? The second biggest search engine in the world, where you can see like unfiltered, raw interviews with world-renowned people, the best in their field, like the world's #1 virologist, and people like Mike Yedden and Roger Hodgkinson and all these people, Gert Van den Bosch, right? And all these people. Oh, what they are? Yeah. That's where I am researching, and I'm not and I don't feel bad about admitting it. So yeah, these social experiments show human nature in its form. This one is no different.
And it's massive. Like, so it's like watching giant exposure therapy happen. The more, like you said, the more people are exposed to something, they become, you know, it's like boiling the frog slowly, and put it in the pan, slowly turning up the heat, because you won't even notice. And I'm seeing it, like I say, across the board, the same as you now, with people that I've networked with for years. And I don't care about saying this, I'm now seeing them starting to turn. It's beginning to segregate. The comments being made, it's absolutely disgusting as far as I'm concerned, because their view is not based on any form of research. It's based on following a news program on the TV.
It's amazing how many intelligent people, proper intelligent and academically, like high-level academic people have been taken in by this. So you can bring like the evidence, right? You can bring psychology into it, right? You can bring like Stockholm syndrome into this, where like the people, like the victim, even start to feel sorry for their abusers, and they go along and they have this connection with their abusers, and they feel sorry for them, and they go along with what they say, and they start
poor old Boris, he's having a hard time trying to run the country, you know.
Poor old Boris looks like an out of work. He looks like a dustman's labourer. Do you know what I mean? He's looks like he's just literally, no matter what time of the day it is, he looks like he has just woke up and got out of bed. He has slept in his suit. And that's why I'm saying that these people that you're looking up to, and these people that are giving us the advice that you think that we need, a lot of people are going along with the people and putting their health trust in these people who benefit and profit from our sickness.
Basically. Django, if you wouldn't mind, can you just play Power for us this morning? Thank you.
Cool, you're fair.
Thank you. Django, can you make this one like a short song, and then we'll just finish off and do a couple of minutes. Jay, where do you want to take this to finish?
It's up to you, wherever you want to go.
Just get your opinion on what needs to be done, really.
Oh, I don't know. Yeah, okay. Let's go.
Oh dear, it is the biggest. I've got to the point now, I feel like my sanity's slipping. Do you know what I mean? I've been pretty good holding the line for 2 years, but now I just feel like I'm slipping off into a different dimension somewhere now.
And that's what I mean. It's kind of hard on us as well.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It takes the strongest of the strong, emotionally and psychologically and mentally, the strongest of the strong, to kind of carry this weight, to carry what it is that we're carrying. But it still doesn't take away from the fact that the weight is heavy. Do you know what I mean? It is.
It's knackering, because obviously, we both work in environments where people look to you for a bit of support and guidance. So with the therapy or whatever, and with the speaking, it just comes with that terrain, doesn't it?
Very much so.
And it is just, I find it's heartbreaking to see these people struggling. And I'm getting a lot of, I don't know if you're getting this now, a lot of people who've been double jabbed are now saying, I wish I'd never had it in my body.
I'm not going for the booster.
Yeah,
going for the
and
booster.
I'm really worried for my
But
health.
yeah,
now.
I'm also seeing a lot of people saying that because you know they're basing it off emotion, and then the emotion goes away, and they're like, "Oh yeah, I am going for it now." And well, you weren't a little while ago. What's changed? Oh well, you know, I haven't really got a good answer.
I want to go on holiday.
Yeah, that's the biggest one. I mean, that kind of justifies all this.
Two most common ones. It's not because
it's a good place to go back into the show.
Perfect. Yeah, it's not because of that. It's holiday or want to go out again.
Yeah, not for me.
Kindasound Radio, the station for a global community.
And you're live.
And welcome back to Kindasound for the final part of Reality Bites this morning with my gorgeous guest, Jamie Denyer. So, Jamie, what's the solution then? Where do you want to see this going? What do you want to say to people to, I don't know, get an end to this massive social experiment and sort of wake up? I mean, we keep using the word wake up, people, please, but I don't think people
No. A lot of people like to snooze and they like to sleep. First and foremost, I think it is a case of taking advice from the Beastie Boys and making a little bit of noise. Like, people need to start questioning, like people need to start speaking out and literally put your egos to the side and start admitting. Like, that's the first and foremost. Listen, on any journey of self-development or self-progression, like, listen, put your ego to the side and listen to people who are there for you, because I don't want you in the end to ask why didn't I listen to world-renowned professionals? Why didn't I see data? Why didn't I look at that information there? Why didn't I take on board what people were saying? And those people were the ones who love and care about me, like family members. Like, why didn't I take notice of that? Why didn't I see it play out from the start? Why didn't I see normal members of the public who called this a couple of months after it started exactly how it was going to play out? Why didn't I say? So, like, yeah, the why is an absolute killer, because why is directly connected to regret, and it's like a lot of people will be regretful of this. So I need people to first and foremost start putting their egos to the side and start doing it for others. And what I mean by this is future generations. Like, people need to know, and what they don't seem to be getting is this isn't just for us right here, right now. Listen, they were never ever coming for the grandparents. They were never ever coming for us. It was always the children. Always the children, right? And people claim, right, and they make that bold claim that I would die for my kids, I'll do anything for my kids. Well, this is the chance. This is the chance now, because you are, like, some of them are gladly sending them to the slaughterhouse by actually being guinea pigs for all this, and the age keeps going down. Now, I can remember over 18 or so months ago, a Canadian guy, big bodybuilder, just in his vest and his skin tight shorts, being interviewed on TV, where he said, "You do realise what's going to happen, don't you? That they are going to say you know, it's just a couple of weeks, and then, you know, the mask mandates are coming in. Then the mask mandates lead to the vaccinations. Then you're going to have vaccinations. Then it's going to be have a jab or lose your job. And then it's going to, like, they're going to have this hold over you, and it's going to have all this manipulation and this control over you." And this was some guy in a vest 18 months ago, and it's played out. So this hasn't been a case of listen, learning as we go along and reacting to the things, reacting to things that happen and reacting in a certain way and doing what needs to be done in that at that moment. No, people called it 18 months ago. A guy, a bodybuilder, a big steroid juice head in a vest called it 18 months ago. Everything that was going to happen and when it was going to happen happened. So what does that tell you? That tells you that it's planned. That's what I need you to kind of see, is to put your ego aside and start looking at the little details, because right from the off, they use the word just. Oh, it's just 3 weeks. Oh, it's just going to be masked for a little while. Oh, it's just going to be one vaccination. Oh yeah, we're not going to vaccinate kids. 6 weeks later, oh yeah, we're going to vaccinate kids. Why? Because they're seeding. Why? Because it's a psychological term is called seeding. They're planting a seed in order for it to grow. So when it starts to grow, you won't be surprised at that. Because if they come out and say, listen, we are going to have you over a barrel for 2 years, that would be boom. People's heads would have exploded. They wouldn't have stood for that. So you subtly do it. That's what you do, and that's what they use, is look at the terminology. That's what I'm asking people to do. Look at the evidence. Listen to the world-renowned professionals that have got everything to lose and nothing to gain. Don't go by the people that are funded by these people and are just having setups and mock-ups, and you see these pictures of these concerned doctors bending over a mannequin in these supposedly like overrun, overwhelmed hospitals, where you see hospitals where there's no one in them. There's no one in them. Listen, they're struggling to fill the beds. But listen, I also need people to kind of really come down to earth and listen, be hit with a big dose of reality. Listen, come back down to earth with a bump, and just know that when they throw stuff at you to scare you, know what's designed to scare you. And when they're saying that all this stuff listen, the NHS is overwhelmed. It's overwhelmed because of obesity, because of smoking, because of drinking, not because of this virus.
And on that note, we've got no time for another song. You need to come back on to chat more about this.
Oh, we have to. Yeah, this is
Jamie,
part one.
Thank you so much for joining me this morning. I'm going to put details in where people can contact you and have a look at what you do. All you lovely listeners on Kindasound this morning, thank you for always joining us on the Reality Bite Show and supporting the channel in general. And again,
and you're off air.
We're done. That was a tight one this morning.
Oh my goodness, sorry about that. Yeah,
that's all right. Well, we've got a lot to say, so
yeah. This has to be kind of like part one.